Developing now, the last of the three high-profile Louisiana prisoners known as the Angola Three could be set free this afternoon after spending more than 4 decades in solitary confinement. Albert Woodfox is the only member of the infamous Angola Three still behind bars. The case of the three men and their time in solitary confinement has been taken up by international human rights groups who say the practice of long-term confinement is inhumane. A federal judge ruled earlier this week that Woodfox be released immediately, saying the state never proved that he was responsible for the stabbing death of a prison guard 43 years ago. But an appeals court stayed his release while deciding whether to hear an appeal from Louisiana's district attorney, who wants to try Woodfox a third time. The stay expires this afternoon. NBC's Mark Potter joins us now from St. Francisville, Louisiana, where Mr. Woodfox remains behind bars. And Mark, what is the latest from there?
Well, hi, Cameron. We are indeed outside that Paris jail where Albert Woodfox is waiting to see if he'll be released after 43 years behind bars in a small cell for a murder that he and his supporters say he never convicted. He was convicted twice for a 1972 brutal murder of a guard, the stabbing murder. Twice those convictions were overturned. He was indicted a third time. But as you said, earlier this week, a judge ruled that too much time had passed, too many witnesses had died, there was no way to have a fair trial again, and so he ordered that Woodfox be released. However, the state is appealing that ruling, saying that Woodfox should stay in jail for the length of that appeal, and so that's what we're waiting for. His attorney also, Woodfox's attorney also says another problem is that the state's case is just very weak.
There is physical evidence that was collected in this case. There is a bloody fingerprint. That bloody fingerprint belongs to somebody, but we know it doesn't belong to Albert Woodfox or any of the other men who are charged in this crime. There's no physical evidence that links Mr. Woodfox to this crime.
Now, his lawyer and supporters say that Woodfox and two others, together known as the Angola Three, were falsely convicted of murders in the 1970s and were targeted because they were organizers of a Black Panther movement within the prison to protest harsh conditions within the Angola prison. He also said, the lawyer, that Woodfox is in very poor health right now. He needs to get out if he's to survive. Also saying that he was subjected to decades of inhumane treatment under 23 hours of lockdown in that jail. The state, however, says that Woodfox is a violent criminal who twice convicted, and despite the fact those convictions were overturned, he was never found not guilty, never acquitted. So we wait for the court's decision, and if he comes out, Woodfox will walk out that door right there. Cameron?
All right, thank you very much, Mark. And joining me now is Angela Allen Bell, Assistant Professor of Legal Writing and Analysis at Southern University Law Center in Baton Rouge. She's written extensively on the case as well as the Black Panther Party and met with Albert Woodfox only yesterday. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell me anything about the conversation you had with Mr. Woodfox? Does he believe he's leaving that prison today?
He's developed an ability to survive this by not allowing himself to see past the moment. So he's not entertaining thoughts about anything past what he's able to see at the moment. But what I will tell you is that we talked and laughed and had a very relaxed visit. He is at peace because he finally feels the truth is being revealed to the public. What he wants the world to know is just purely facts so that people can make their own very reasoned decision based on the facts of this case. And that has been suppressed for 43 years, largely due to misconduct. There is not only a lack of physical evidence, but the three inmates that they did use to testify against him were all habitual offenders with criminal histories that the state offered inducements. There's a serial rapist that they used to testify against Mr. Woodfox, who was permitted to actually walk free in exchange for this testimony. There was a blind man, a legally blind man, that got under oath twice before two prior juries and said that he saw Mr. Woodfox do something when he couldn't even see. And then the third man later was released after his inducements, only to go out and commit additional crimes in the state of Louisiana. So when the state talks about Mr. Woodfox being a criminal, they obviously have forgotten that they've made deals with criminals in order to keep Mr. Woodfox in jail. There's no evidence to keep him there, and there's no legal justification for these extreme conditions of solitary confinement. He is 68 years old. He has diabetes, high blood pressure, he has pain panic attacks and a host of other health problems. And the only thing he wants at this moment, when we talked yesterday, I said, do you want to plan a dinner perhaps? What do you want us to do for you if you do walk out tomorrow? And he said, the only thing I want is to see my mother's grave. He was deprived of that. They were so cruel, they wouldn't even allow him to attend her funeral. So he's right now very faithful, very trusting in the ability of God to deliver him a miracle today. And he is aware that this is not just a local issue. This is not just a national issue. This is now an international movement. And this is not going to stop until he's released. This injustice has to come to an end today.
To your point, there have been documentaries, at least 3, about the Angola 3. Supporters have always maintained that these men were convicted because they protested the harsh treatment and harsh prison conditions that existed in Angola, and also were part of the Black Panther movement. You talk about the innocence factor here. His convictions were overturned. However, Teenie Rogers, the widow of Brent Miller, she believes that Mr. Woodfox is innocent despite being made a widow from someone's crime. And let me play what she said.
To know that they were there for all them years, it breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart. To spend time, especially knowing that you haven't done anything to deserve it. I can't even imagine it. Can't even imagine it.
And many people feel that very way. But again, that is the widow of Brent Miller saying she cannot imagine it because she believes they are innocent. With that said, in addition to the cases, there have been reforms as a result of what happened to these 3 men. We should note that at least Robert King will be talking with us on Monday. Mr. Wallace was released October 1st, 2013, and after those 41 years in prison, he died just a few days later. But the spotlight, for lack of a better description, was put on what was happening in that prison and others regarding the treatment of individuals there.
Yeah, and the important thing to remember about Angola back in 1972 when this crime was committed is that Angola was segregated. First, Angola had a system of actually using the Caucasian inmates, giving them weapons and letting them serve as guards. Angola had also been under an order by the United States Supreme Court to reform some of the conditions because the Supreme Court said that they were violating the Constitution in a number of ways. So this was not a safe prison. It was run by sexual exploitation, and it was run by a number of constitutional abuses. And so what Mr. Woodfox and Mr. Wallace and Mr. King did was very courageous. It had nothing to do with race. It had more to do with human rights and making sure that if they were going to be locked up, that they were going to be done so humanely. And they did what they did to protect other people's children. And that is why at this time people are responding in kind. They are getting now support from all over the world because people are finally seeing the facts. And it's not just his team, it's not just his lawyers, it's not just the widow, it's actual federal judges who've gone on record to call this what it is. This is a legal lynching, and this needs to stop today.
Professor Angela Allen Bell, thank you so much for your time.